Good afternoon, class. My name is DDavenport, and today I'm going to brief you about the culture of Afghanistan. This is my audience. You guys go ahead and take a seat, please. What comes to mind when you hear the word Afghanistan? Is Afghanistan on your list of vacation spots? Let me go ahead and give you a couple brief points about Afghanistan. The area of Afghanistan is 647,500 square kilometers, which is slightly smaller than Texas. The population is 29,863,000 from a 2005 estimate. Natural gas, petroleum, coal, copper, chromite, tail, barites, sulfur, lead, zinc, iron, ore, salt, precious and semi-precious stones are naturally found in Afghanistan. The main ethnic groups are Pashtuns, Tajik, Hazara, Uzbek, Turkmen, Amak, Baloch, Nuristani, and Kizilbash. Although Pashto and Dari are Afghanistan's official languages, in Afghanistan's constitution it states that the majority of the language spoken in certain areas are also considered that area's official language. So if you go to a certain part of the country and they're speaking mainly Dari, then that'll be that official language for that area of Afghanistan. Pashto is spoken throughout Kabul. Many Afghans are multilingual, and 70% of the culture speaks 70 other languages through different dialects. Afghanistan is an Islamic country, and estimated 80% of the population is Sunni, following the Hafani school jurisprudence. The remainder of the population is Shiite. In recent history, Afghanistan has been host to Christian, Hindu, Judaism, and Sky religious groups. When the Persians were overthrown in 1747, Ahmad Shah Durrani unified the Pashtun tribes and founded Afghanistan in 1747. The country served as a buffer between British and Russian empires until it won its independence from notional British control in 1919. The Soviet Union invaded in 1979 to support the tottering Afghanistan communist regime, touching off a long and destructive war. The USSR withdrew in 1989 under relentless pressure by internationally supported and anti-communist Mujahideen rebels. In 1994, the balance of power within Afghanistan was disrupted by an incursion of several thousand young Islamic students, which is known as the Taliban, supported by Pakistan's fundamentalist Jama'at-ul-Ulama Islam, the Assembly of Islamic Clergy, and led by Maulana Fazal Rahman. After winning control of a third of the country's provinces, the Taliban, by late February 1995, had driven Hekmat Yar, the prime minister at the time, from his palace in Charosabad, 10 miles south of Kabul, and proceeded to advance on the capital. By September 25, 1996, the Taliban units were in complete control of Kabul, and Mullah Muhammad Omar, the spiritual leader of the Taliban, assumed the status of de facto head of state. In 3 decades prior to the tragic events of 9/11, the people of Afghanistan suffered from the consequences of 2 interconnected tragedies: the occupation by the former Soviet Union and the influx of extremists in the aftermath of the Russian withdrawal. When the country suddenly lost their strategic importance in the aftermath of the Cold War, international disagreement left Afghanistan vulnerable, effectively allowing the country to become a base of operations for transnational terrorists, extremists, and drug traffickers. In this fashion, Afghanistan was both a victim of the Cold War and a victim of the end of the Cold War. On October 7, 2001, the U.S.-led coalition forces re-engaged Afghanistan. The Taliban launched a major attack against the Northern Alliance in 2001, June 2001, and once again appeared dedicated to the pursuit of a final, complete military victory. However, such hopes were irrevocably compromised by the terrorist attacks on September 11th in the United States. The Bush administration quickly determined to be the work of bin Laden's Al-Qaeda. Washington immediately demanded bin Laden be turned over for prosecution, or else military action would be initiated to remove him by force from Afghanistan. Efforts were made to forge a compromise under which, for example, bin Laden would be tried in a third country. However, President Bush declared the U.S. terms were not negotiable. Mullah Omar finally decided that the Taliban would take a stand in defense of its guest. Consequently, after having secured broad coalition support for the action, the United States, declaring that it was acting in self-defense, launched Operation Enduring Freedom on October 7th against Al-Qaeda. By the time it was clear the assault was intended not only to destroy Al-Qaeda, but also to produce a new regime in Afghanistan, Washington having concluded that Al-Qaeda and the Taliban were one and the same. Heavy bombing by U.S. aircraft and cruise missiles quickly shattered the minimal infrastructure available to the Taliban military, while Omar's call on October 11th to the rest of the Muslim world for assistance in countering the U.S. invasion elicited little response. The attention of the military campaign shifted later in the month to bombing Al-Qaeda and Taliban troops in north to support a ground assault by the Northern Alliance. After a disorganized start, the anti-Taliban forces, substantially rearmed and resupplied by the United States and Allied forces, assumed an offensive posture at the end of October and drove towards the capital with few setbacks. As many warlords previously aligned with the Taliban defected to the North Alliance, the first big prize, Mazar-e-Sharif, fell on November 9th, and Kabul was surrounded by November 11th. While observing the history of Afghanistan, we must also recognize the cultural differences that come with it. Some of the culture that Afghanistan is known for are its paintings. The world's first oil painting was found in Afghanistan. One of the most famous kinds is the Gandhara art between the 1st and 7th century, based on Greco-Buddhist art. Kamaluddin Behzad was a famous artist from Herat during the late Timurid and early Safavid periods. Since the 1900s, the nation began to use Western techniques in art. Abdul Ghaffur Bashana was a prominent Afghan painter and sketch artist from Kabul during the 20th century. He made many paintings and sketches, but most were lost or destroyed during the decades of war. Afghanistan's art was originally almost entirely done by men, but recently women are entering the art programs at Kabul University. Art is largely centered at the National Museum of Afghanistan, the National Gallery of Afghanistan, and the National Archives of Afghanistan in Kabul. There are a number of art schools in the country. The Center for Contemporary Art Afghanistan, CCAA, in Kabul provides young people the opportunity to learn contemporary painting. Poetry is another one. Poetry of Afghanistan has ancient roots, which is mostly written in Pashto and Dari. Afghanistan was noted for its poetic language even before the Islamic conquest of Afghanistan in the 7th through the 11th centuries. The Pada Khazana, if authentic, contains Pashto poetry written as far back as the 8th century. Some of the most famous poets from the region of Afghanistan or Khorasan include Rumi, Kushab Kal Khatat, Rahman Baba, Ahmad Sahar Durrani, and Al-Afghani, and many others. The nation also has a number of female poets, such as Rabi Baki, 17th century Nazo Taki, and others. Due to political unrest and wars in the country, many women poets have remained hidden. Today, there are few established young Afghan women poets like Afghan American. Saji Aha-Ara, a student at the University of Mary Washington in the United States, wrote a poem in 2010 entitled Desire for World's Peace. Afghanistan's culture is also big on sports. Cricket. Cricket was first played in Afghanistan during the 19th century. Anglo-Afghan wars with British troops reported as having played in Kabul in 1839. However, unlike many countries, no lasting cricket legacy was left by the British, and it would have more than 100 years before cricket returned. Cricket and football are the most popular sports in Afghanistan. The Afghanistan national cricket team, which was formed in 2001, has held matches against all other international cricket teams. The Afghan team rapidly rose through the World Cricket League since early 2008. It participated in the 2009 ICC World Cup qualifier, the 2010 ICC World Cricket League Division 1, and 2010 ICC World 2020, where they played India and South Africa. The team won 4 times in a row. The ACC 2020 Cup in 2007, 2009, 2011, and 2013. It played against top-ranking teams in the 2012 ICC Under-19 Cricket World and the 2012 ICC World 2020. There are 3 cricket stadiums in Afghanistan. Work on the Shirzai Cricket Stadium in Jalalabad, a city known in Afghanistan for being the capital of cricket, is in progress. Although cricket and football are popular, Afghans partake in many other sports. One I noticed was volleyball. While deployed to Afghanistan, I worked with the Afghan National Army, the ANA, and frequently visited their compound. Every time we went to their compound, if they weren't working, they were playing volleyball. Never having actually stayed to watch them play, we naturally assumed they were unfamiliar with the game and were just hitting the ball back and forth. Closing in on our last couple of weeks in the country, they asked us if we wanted to play a game of volleyball. Of course, we obliged with the assumption we were about to take them to school. Astonishingly, not only were they familiar with the game, but they were actually very good at it. We think they took it easy on us at the beginning, but soon it escalated, and they were sparking the ball left and right. Needless to say, we did not win the game. We barely showed up. In conclusion, the people of Afghanistan had lived and fought for years to be free from one regime or another, constantly fighting to survive by any means necessary. Taking time to go a little further in depth with our knowledge of one country's culture can sometimes surprise us. With news constantly at our fingertips, we forget that there's always more to a story than what is on the cover of a book. I hope that my speech today gave you a little insight to the culture of Afghanistan and maybe piqued an interest into the country's past, its media forefront. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
Bring up our